Good to have Sarah on here for you to meet, who is an American who has recently moved to New Zealand, and she's here to share her story and her experience. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me, Tara. It's such a pleasure. I've been following you for some time as I was contemplating my move for about a year and a half. Well, I guess almost
Okay.
2 years now. And here I am. I landed in New Zealand, and I feel like I've entered an alternate universe.
Oh my gosh, is that so not true? That is so true. I so relate to what you're saying. So let's start from the beginning. Let's maybe start from like the year and a half ago where you were thinking about coming. Why were you thinking? Maybe a little bit about where you're from and what kind of work that you do. We'll just start there.
Great. Yeah. So I actually am from the US. I grew up in Pennsylvania
Oh,
for the
okay.
last years. I've been living in Los Angeles, which is a
Mm,
great town to be from. And I don't know, I think a couple of years ago, I started to really see a lot of political shifts that were not feeling great for me. And I'm not here to get into politics, it's very
right.
personal to everybody. But I wasn't feeling very excited about the direction that things were going. And then I think I started to just lay the groundwork for what would life be like somewhere else. And just a little background as a person in college, I did study abroad 3 times.
Oh,
And
okay. And
to
where
me,
did you
that
go?
the first one these were summer programs, so shorter ones, but I
Okay.
spent like a month in China, in Chengdu, which was great. I think the interesting thing about it is we as Westerners don't often get the experience of what it's like to be in a place where you are visibly a foreigner, you
Mm,
know?
mm,
And so to be in China or someplace in Asia and for people to recognize that you're different. You get that experience, right? That we take for granted, like in the US, if you're Caucasian, like you don't really get that. So that was interesting. I
mm.
also studied abroad the next summer in Iceland, which was really fascinating.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, yeah. And I will say there's a few parallels to New Zealand and Iceland in that they're both
Mm.
island nations, right? And some of the architecture is similar, not completely, but yeah, there's a little underlying thread of familiarity between the two. And then the last place I studied abroad was the Czech Republic. And so,
Really?
yeah, I was in
Wow.
Prague for 6 weeks one summer. And my family's East European, so it was really interesting for me to experience kind of visiting the neighboring countries, the motherland, and that was really cool. So anyway, after studying abroad, I feel like me living internationally has been a long time coming,
Mm,
and so I think the deciding factor for me was the election, and I wasn't comfortable with the oncoming administration and policies, and I stood in the way of being directly impacted.
mm.
So I finalized my choice at that point. I had already gotten a work visa and a job offer. And Tara, you know this. I was working with a great company called Working In.
Working in, yes, my immigration partner, they're the best.
So I will say they were very helpful and they had all the inside knowledge and they made it really seamless. And I
Yeah.
will say New Zealand is quite modern in those respects
Mm,
because I work in healthcare and I'm a nurse. I'm a
mm.
green light type of a visa, meaning they have a great need for
Right.
skilled workers.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think my visa was approved in a week. So
Whoa.
yeah, it was
Wow. And this
crazy.
was, when was this? Was this last year?
Yeah, I think I finally submitted the visa, or they submitted like in October or late September, and it was like a week or two later. It was like, I was like, wow, I wasn't expecting that. So, yeah.
Really? And are you an RN?
So, my background is actually I'm a nurse anesthetist, and
Oh, you are. Okay, cool. Okay.
I've been working in anesthesia for 16 years.
Mhm.
Um, they don't really have a
Right.
comparable role
They
here in
don't.
New Zealand.
Yeah.
So my scope of practice is much more limited, but still working in the anesthesia arena. And I don't know, it's a shift and whatnot. But at the same time, there's so many reasons why I'm grateful to be here and just to see healthcare from another point of view.
Totally.
Yeah. And
So I assume you're working in a hospital,
yeah, I'm working at a private hospital
in a private
here
hospital. Okay.
in Auckland. And you know, even that is different. I'm sure when you were here, Tara, that you've had to access healthcare, and you know, there's the public system, and then a lot of people get private insurance on top of that.
Mhm.
So I definitely think I'm dealing with a different patient population in the private hospitals, and it's mostly focused on surgical services.
Mhm.
Um, and I've never seen this before, but as you know, over Christmas, which is summer here,
Mhm.
everything, the whole country like closes down. And so the hospital shuts down for a couple of weeks. So it's kind of like, wow, you all go home, you know, like,
No, I know. It's crazy. So that's so interesting that even in healthcare, it's like that. Oh my goodness. New Zealand.
yeah. Yeah, so but it's really fun. And yeah, so it's been about 5 weeks that I've been here. I arrived, I think, on January 12th, and I would say the biggest stress upon arrival was figuring out how to drive on the other side of the road.
Okay, so how has that been? That's the number one question I get from people. They're so nervous about it. It was my biggest fear when I went there and ended up being okay. But like you're in Auckland, so how is it for you there?
Well, I came from LA, right?
True,
So
true, true.
I often joke that you often take your life into your own hands when you get behind the wheel in LA. So by those standards, it's very manageable here. People are much more polite. They don't drive like maniacs, but it is a big city with a lot of traffic.
Yeah.
Um, so I got in the rental car after landing, after traveling for, I don't know, 18
Wow.
hours, and was like, I got to figure this out. Um, what helped me a lot was, yep, you just have to drive on the left side of the road. And every time I stopped, I just started to think, what's my next move?
Yes.
You know, so I had to be like, okay, I'm at this crossroad or this cross section, and I'm going to turn. Where am I going to land? And I
Right.
had to stay present. Um, and there were a few times where, you know, I almost tried to turn into the wrong lane. Nothing happened. I just sort of corrected. But it after a few weeks becomes muscle memory to the point where I'm like, wow, if I was back in the States, would it feel awkward to drive on the right side then?
Yes, and it does because every year that
Yeah.
I came back, I was like, okay, here we go. And it always took me quite a while. But yeah, so did you find I found that like the roundabouts are really helpful because all the traffic is just flowing and you just kind of stay with it. But I always was saying out loud a lot of times, left side, left side, left side, stay on the left side. Just to make sure that my body does it, you know what I mean? Because like my brain and so, you know, speaking it out loud helped. And the kids were like, "Oh my gosh, mom!" But you know, when you have kids in the car and the streets are windier and you know everything's different, right? And so, yeah, it's an adjustment.
Yeah.
Good on you for like literally getting off the plane and getting a rental car and driving on the left side. That's impressive.
Yeah, that'll be the feather in my cap for sure. And
Mhm.
and my life is just like, well, when in New Zealand, you just have to adapt, right?
Right.
I think that's part of the experience I want to share with your listeners is just really being open and embracing.
Yes.
I think we get in our heads of like comparison and
Mm.
thinking what was different in the States. I mean, just even going to the grocery store, first of all, the sticker shock you get from grocery shopping. I mean, it's, you
But is
know,
it really more than LA? Like, I feel like the food is still expensive here. I mean, if you're getting
true.
organic
True.
anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to shop in like the more fancy places and get specialty things, but you know, even if you get organic maple syrup, that's kind of pricey.
Right.
But what I have found is like anywhere you figure out the life hacks, right? You
Mhm.
figure out where to go, and just like I said, being open to the gifts that being here brings you. Really, one of my happy places is the incredible nature in New Zealand.
Mhm.
and being fortunate enough to, I purchased a car within about a week. And to, if you go just an hour outside of Auckland, it's like you're in another
Yes.
world.
A whole
You can,
different world.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you're in Jurassic Park. There are these beautiful manicured hiking trails with these perfectly structured little steps, everything's clean, people are polite, and I don't have the congestion of people like I experienced in LA. You have some room to breathe.
Yes.
And in that sense, it really being here is healing my soul on a deep level.
Mhm.
Um, my only caveat that I'll throw out there is bring your 50 plus sunblock because the sun here is no joke.
No joke. It literally, like you feel it and it like feels like it's burning you. And
Yeah.
it's different. It's totally different. So yes, exactly. That's good advice. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's only been about 5 weeks. There's still so much to explore. I know people say that the South Island is much more geographically beautiful than the North Island, but I think the North Island is stunning. And I landed here in the midst of summer, and the weather has been pretty ideal. And so
Yeah.
I feel like I'm getting spoiled right now. But
Nice.
it's been a wonderful experience, even with all the change. And I will say also that being a very international country, it has been somewhat easy to meet people. And like I'm having tea next week with the girlfriend that I met at a meetup. So if people consider moving here, I would say meetup.com is a great way to connect with like-minded
Yes. I've done that a
individuals.
lot. Yes. Even like in industry or like, if I was in the entrepreneur ones and yeah, and then you meet up and it's great. That's true. That's good. That's a good plug for that. I like that. So
Absolutely.
are you downtown Auckland? Like, are you in the city?
Yeah, I'm not in the CBD, but I
Okay.
am a block from Ponsonby Road,
Okay.
so which is like the trendy road in all of New Zealand, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a fun place to be. People here might call it kind of posh
Yeah. Yeah.
to use the
I
New Zealand.
like I literally saw you. I just so you guys know, I've just met Sarah for the first time, but she comes on and I see like the background of your place and I'm like, she's in Auckland. I can tell. I had no idea if you were, but yeah, so like I'm assuming you're renting. Like how did that whole process go? And did that sticker shock like shock you? Because that's a big one that people are concerned about.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah, the wages to cost of living ratio is different here, is
Mhm.
the big thing to adjust to. I came from Los Angeles, right?
Right.
So where price gouging is just a way of life there. It's different in that you're paying by the week here.
Mhm.
Uh, I more or less realized pretty quickly, like if I was just going to pay $500 a week in Auckland, I really wasn't going to get a place
Right.
that felt okay to me.
That you like. Yeah. Yeah.
So I had to scale up my budget. Fortunately, my place came with like a fridge and a freezer, which not all of them
No,
do.
not all of them do. That's true.
And I did purchase a washer and dryer because it didn't have it, but it
Mm.
had the space. So you know, uh, renting, I had some help because Working In did a great job of giving a list of referrals of
Mhm.
people that could help me with various services. And one of them was Tenants. I think it's tenants.co.nz.
Mm.
And they basically were able to help me look through various options. And then when I found a place to apply to, they had already collected all of the various documents like reference letters from, previous landlords.
Oh,
And
nice.
so they just submitted it with the application. And then, I just was able to sign the lease. What's interesting is that when you step away from the United States, you realize what a litigious environment
Yes.
is and
Yes.
how the US is constantly, their contracts are like, trying to make space for this, and this that might happen. And then you come to New Zealand and it's so much more simplified
Right. It's
because
one piece of paper. Here you go. Send me the money. You know, it's like, I'm like, are you being serious? Like, if I buy anything in the States, it's like, here's my firstborn, you know, take my blood. That's how it
yeah,
is.
DNA, yeah,
Right.
Social Security, all of that.
Right. All the disclaimers everywhere.
Yeah, so that was a bit more streamlined. Buying a car was more
Yes, I was
streamlined.
going to ask you, tell me about how that was for you, because I get that question a lot.
Yeah, so people were again so kind and friendly. I mean, it's pretty much just a flat price. You don't have to
Yes.
haggle,
There's no
which can,
negotiating. They don't like it. In fact, I try to negotiate even like $100 off, and they're like, "Yeah, we don't do that here." I'm like, okay,
yeah.
okay,
So
that's easier.
did you feel like it was a relief though? I mean,
Yeah,
in some way,
100%, 100%. I hate buying cars here. I'm just like, seriously, this is a nightmare.
exactly.
Yes.
So that pressure was gone, in that respect. I went through Turner's Cars, which is one of the biggest car dealerships in
Yes,
all of,
that's where I recommend everybody to get their car from. Everybody.
yeah, they were so friendly, so helpful. I mean, it was a pretty streamlined process. I think you could even get your license plates on site there. And
Yeah, well, the
we,
license plates stay with the car. So it's different
yeah,
with the US. And so it's so much easier. If you, there's one thing that you'll notice, and you haven't been there very long, is that everything's logical. Like the way that they
yeah,
do things just are like logical and reasonable and doesn't take advantage of anybody. And not clearly somebody else is winning and not you, the consumer.
yeah. I would agree with that. And I think you could even register your car on site. It was just so much more streamlined. And, I'm sure it's just because of manageability for having a
Yeah,
smaller
small,
population. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So that has been a relief. Um, Things like getting packages can be a little challenging because I work like daytime hours and
Hmm.
sometimes I have to be present to sign for things. So that I've had to kind of work through a little bit with deliveries. But in general, like I said, people are so just kind. And I mean, even I established a relationship with a general practitioner, a doctor here, and like they call you to like talk about this prescription or that, and I mean, have conversations. I mean, it's so like bizarre, like we're not talking through email and like remote and disconnected. I mean, it's there's so much more of a personal uh, touch and investment
Oh,
here.
interesting. Yeah, no, I agree. And there's no hierarchy in New Zealand in general. Like you'll even see like the prime minister will fly economy and won't have like a million guards around them. Like it's just different. Like, and
Yeah.
so like, yeah, like people just call you up. I mean, I remember getting some like a tooth pulled and like the surgeon was doing my IV and I was like, wait,
Yeah.
what? You know, they're just like, oh no, you're gonna want me to do it because he's a friend of mine. I was like, oh, okay, wow.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, there's
really
just not the
cool.
same. Yeah,
Yeah. And speaking of healthcare, I mean, everything is just
yeah.
so calm and controlled. I mean, people work and they hustle and they get turned over for the next case, but it's very patient centered
Hmm.
and it's very respectful. And, people really do. There were even some things about doing anesthesia in New Zealand that we don't do in the US, which I feel are a little more advanced, believe it
Really
or not.
interesting.
And so, just to get into some technicalities real quick and talk shop,
Please.
and I'll break it down real easy. Like, for instance, when we run like sedation drips of meds like propofol, which we use like water in anesthesia, we tend to just give that in the US according to weight,
Hmm.
just one blanket weight. In New Zealand, they're using these algorithms where you're trying to basically give it more efficiently according to what that concentration needs to be in the brain for them to be sedated. And so I think essentially in the end, you're giving a more tailored anesthetic
Hmm.
and wasting less. And so the patient can wake up faster. And when I asked, I said, well, gosh, that's so interesting. That must be new. And they're like, no, it's been around for like 20 years. And the barrier is the FDA, which, rightly so, the FDA has its reasons, but also big pharma in that probably if you're dosing by milligrams per kilogram blanket, you're probably giving more product,
Getting
meaning
more product, more
the
money,
drug companies make more
right?
money. So you see like the value system is
Mhm.
is different, it seems. And like, look, I don't know enough to know for sure, but this is kind of the vibe I'm getting. So
Yeah, no, totally. Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah, I'm already like, I've only been in the States for a couple of months and already having arguments with big, huge hospitals because they're billing me for things that are so outrageously high. I was like, that was 15 minutes is not worth $800. So
ah,
yeah, so I'm not paying it. So if you want to give me a reasonable rate, you know what I mean? Like in what industry can you just literally go, someone's in like sick and desperate need of something that you go to get some help with it, and then they can't tell you how much it's going to be, and then they just send you the bill and it could be whatever. Like what world is that?
well, and then the
I
other
was
piece,
like,
like that goes on your credit if you don't pay it. So it's really abusive,
oh
you're
yeah, they're
creating.
gonna come after me. They said all this. I'm like, "Nah, whatever. It's a principle thing. I don't care. I'm not paying that." So
Yeah,
in the end, they will literally come back and say, "Give me $150," and that's what will happen because I've done this multiple times and it's not right. And
yeah.
there's plenty of people that don't fight for it and don't make the extra effort, you know what I mean? And just go into so much debt. Anyway, I could go into the whole thing with that, but I
No,
won't.
it's a valid argument and it's very frustrating. And at the end of the day, yes, you can argue and get the money off, but like it causes you like stress and
Oh,
like repairs.
huge. It's huge. And I'm just like, and of course I have the choice. Like I could just be like, fine, I'll just do like the payment plan, but it's just not right. It's like, it's so not right. Like this is not the value of what I got. I met with a nurse for 15 minutes. It doesn't mean that's 800 some dollars. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like that does not
yeah.
add up. Like even at 300, I probably would have paid it and just thought it was a lot, but now they've just gone too far for me. Because all my babies cost me like $30,000, and I just called up because I just called up the head of the hospital guy or girl or whoever it was, and I said, "Here's the deal: like somebody who is not contributing to society, that doesn't have a job where I've a business where I've hired people, because I couldn't get decent insurance because I was self-employed at the time, and I'm like, they can come in off the street on drugs, have a baby, and it's free." And like I am like contributing to society and doing, and you're going to charge me $30,000 with insurance, the best that I can get.
It's
And he's like,
insane.
it's insane. He didn't
Yeah.
even look at the bill. He said, "Okay, if you can pay 12,000 in 30 days, we'll reduce it." Like that, just like that.
But why should it be like that? And I think my test in all of this was to be like, we grew up thinking in the US that the US is the best place to be in the
Yes.
world.
It's what we've been fed.
It's the line we've been told. And so the experiment here was for me to be like, well, is that true? And what is it like somewhere else?
Yep,
And,
totally.
and so that's what I'm exploring here because what I'm seeing in the US, especially in the last 20 years, is this almost predatory form of capitalism where
Yes.
it is just like, money grab, as much as you can, as fast as you can. And like, look, we all have to make a living, but it's just becoming, like I said, it feels abusive in some ways.
Yeah.
And like, look, I love so many things about America. I love that I can order a book on Amazon and it's there the next day. Like, it's
Right.
amazing.
It's amazing.
So there's a lot to be said and just how much resources we have and how much variety we have. Um, but
Mm,
we're in a shifting world, and what I can say also to people who are following you is my personal, I think, asset in life was always my ability to adapt and change and go with the
mm,
flow. And I've always been able to kind of see what was coming next. And I think that's a gift is you if you just let go
mm,
and say, okay, well, what if this is my experiment even for a year or two, just to see
totally.
what it's like? I feel really, maybe you felt like this too, Tara. I feel like really powerful and liberated. Like I have
Yep.
way more options than I gave myself credit for. Did
Yes.
you ever feel like
A
that?
100%. Like I could not have said it better. Like that,
Yeah.
and that's what I tell people all the time. Like, people get overwhelmed at the idea of moving abroad, whether it's New Zealand or whatever, because they think it needs to be forever. They think if I'm going to do this huge thing, I'm going to sell everything I own, I'm going to move my kids, I'm going to do this, it's going to be forever. And it's not. You have no idea who you're going to be in 5 years, 10 years, whatever. Things change, circumstances change. But what you do learn when you do move is that you can, and that you can adjust and be successful in a completely different environment. And the growth that you have and the lessons that you learn and the perspective that you get is second to none. Like you know what I mean? You have nothing but a blessing to you. Even if you go, I tell them, in worst case scenario, if you go and you hate it, and that's only happened to one of my clients, but also I knew that she would hate it.
Yeah.
And I said, and I'm like, even if you hate it, then then you're not getting to the end of your life going, I wonder, and I have regret that I didn't ever do it. Do you know what I mean? And so even just selling everything you own and starting over is a good habit. Okay. Like you're not losing in any of this categories, that you're just like, people are like panicked. They're going to lose their job. And you can get another job. This is not that complicated. You know what I mean? And like, we're making decisions based on a job. We're making decisions because we have healthcare. Like, come on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you have one life to do something, go and do it, try it, experience it. You'll do nothing but grow. Sorry.
100%. I mean, just listening to what you're saying, the vibe I'm getting at, and I believe this to be true, our souls crave expansion.
Right.
And when you move and you get rid of all the old stuff, you're like cutting those cords and you're free and you can expand into something different. And yes, exactly what you said. If you make a choice and you don't like the choice, you can always make a different choice. It's just like that.
Exactly. And you learn about yourself and you learn more about what you like and what you don't like. And what maybe you discover things you had no idea would be so fulfilling in your life. Like, you're just never giving yourself a chance. You're just staying where you were plopped in from the beginning, and because that's comfortable. But in a lot of ways it's miserable.
For sure. And I think there is something again about the American condition, which makes it so much harder for us as Americans to think like there could be any place better tailored for us specifically as individuals.
Totally.
It's like, oh, I'll just move to Montana, or I'll just move to New Mexico. But Europeans come from a different point of view, right? Like,
yes,
they're just like, it's the EU. I could just go wherever. And like, Germans, I think, travel more than anybody in the world. They're always out there. Australians too, or like, when you get out of the US, you see how much more open people are to just embracing and seeing the world. And I've always gravitated to those individuals. So there's a lesson there. But, you kind of have to give up this sense of American, I don't want to say superiority, but just American, like, there's a tiny bit of arrogance sometimes.
Yeah, no, there is. Yeah. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. And then when I was in New Zealand, all of the travelers were from Europe. And they were just so cool. Like, their mindset was so different than mine. It was so noticeable that they were so like open to new things, that everything's going to be, they didn't have all these fears. Part of what keeps Americans in the US is this constant, like, your kids are going to get stolen, you're going to get raped. There's this fear that to keep you here. You know what I mean? And then arguably, this is one of the most unsafe places to be. Okay. Like, it's just what? And like, then you step out and you see that other people thrive and people do things a different way. And it's actually better in some circumstances. And it's actually really great. And like, there's another way of thinking about it. It does nothing but help you. And it's great. And then like, I really enjoyed meeting people from around the world. Like, New Zealand is quite a melting pot of a variety of people. And it just adds to all the richness. And then the Kiwis and the Maori culture that just values people coming to their land in general and are sincerely interested in learning about you and knowing you. It's just a breath of fresh air. It's not like, get out, you immigrant, get out.
No, I every time I meet people at work, they have a natural curiosity. They're like, oh, you're an American. and they want to know, they
They
want to
want to
understand.
know. They told that, yes, that is exactly natural curiosity. That's it.
Yeah. And I will share just to jump off your point about, America isn't necessarily like the safest place. I mean, yeah, we look at all the gun violence in US, and even a lot of people I work with have come from England because they don't
Mhm.
feel it's as safe there, and they have kids and they want their kids to grow up in a safer space, or like less crowded, or less just, whatever. And so what I'm seeing is, yeah, there is a sense of people wanting to get back to just simplicity and peace,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
and to make life more manageable. So, I don't know what the future holds, but right now I'm really loving where I'm at, and it's been a very empowering move, and I'm just hoping to kind of segue this into my own personal goals. So, as I mentioned to you before we started, I also am launching my business as a life coach. It's called Aligned with Sarah. And my goal is to help people get into alignment with their highest self, and to really help them through the fears that are holding them back in their life. And so if you're interested in any of that, you can find me on Instagram at Aligned with Sarah, or at the Sarah Parlow is my personal handle. And yeah,
Oh,
I have
that's
a
great. I'll put that all in the description. Yes, that's so good. I love that. And I think that that's really relevant because I have hundreds of clients right now that are moving to New Zealand. So they're Americans, almost I say 99% are Americans. And they're coming and they're going through this huge change. And that would be a really, really great resource. So guys, check out Sarah. I'll put her link below because that would be really great. And then just as somebody to talk to that understands I have done it. So did you come to New Zealand by yourself?
just me.
Wow, that's also amazing because I always get a lot of, you know, single women that are coming and they're just like, can I go by myself? It's all, it's that American fear, 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 right? Um,
Yeah.
and that's just really great. I love that.
I feel very safe here.
Mm.
I'll just give you a few examples really quick. I bought a bed that came in a box, okay, and
Mhm.
had to drag it home like in the trunk of my car. And when I parked outside of my apartment and opened the trunk, there's a restaurant on the bottom floor, and some sweet Kiwi jumped up without blinking an eye and said, "Do you need some help?" And he got to
Oh,
play
oh.
hero, and like I'll tell you, like, the universe takes care of you for
Mhm.
whatever direction, whatever choice you make. Like, people have taken care of me here. Like,
Right.
I feel like being here as a woman in any way disadvantaged. If anything, it makes people want to help you more in a way. And I
Yeah,
don't
no,
have,
true.
even though I'm in Auckland, I don't feel the threat of like violence. I mean, I don't go out like late at night anyway. I'm not stupid, but
Right.
like
Right.
I I feel very safe here,
Mm.
I guess is what I would say. And also the one thing I want to point out, you touched on it earlier. When I met the people at Working in person. They were so sweet. Robin asked to take me to a coffee like 2 days
Oh,
after I
nice,
left.
Robin. You met Robin. That's great.
And let me just tell you, it really was the nicest thing to get myself feeling grounded
Yeah.
right away. And I was just curious. I asked her, and I said, "So how is business? Like, what's the vibe? You have your finger on the pulse." And she said about 80% of their inquiries are from Americans.
Yep.
And I was like, "So I'm not crazy." And she was like, "No, you made a great choice." Going into it, you're like, am I wild that I'm like, I just don't want to deal with the politics. I just want to step away for a bit,
Yep.
maybe, and I don't, maybe indefinitely. I don't know. We'll see. And she kind of said to me, like, no, there's a lot of other people who are just open to exploring out there. So
Yeah, no, they are. And I like right around the election, as soon as the election happened, I was telling Working In, I was like, guys, I'm telling you, this is going to be like a time because they're coming here to the US this year and we're going to be going and doing seminars in person. But I was trying to get them to do it around the election because I just knew it would be the curiosity point. And And they, it didn't work out, but they're like, well, we're willing to do like online ones. So I did online. I had 500 people sign up for each one. And I just kept doing more and more because there was just so much interest in it. And I always polled everybody, like, are you here because of a knee-jerk reaction to the election? Or are you here because you've been thinking about this? And most of them were thinking about it. Just sometimes you need a little push, right? Sometimes you need a little like extra reason, or we're far enough now away from COVID that we're kind of back into things. And it seems a lot more reasonable. So yeah, so everything is just kind of taken off. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so yeah,
The
you're
interest
definitely
is
not.
real. And just for people listening, I just want to share, like, from a mental standpoint, I feel so much more at peace right
Hmm.
now. For me personally. And like, look, for me, I knew it was time for me to leave LA. And I was just telling Tara before we started, the irony of it all is that I left the week that those massive fires had started. Like, I was there for about 5 or 6 days. You know, the sun was orange from all the ash and the smoke in the air. It felt very, uh, what's the word? Like Armageddon. It felt
Yeah,
very
right. It would feel Armageddon.
yeah, it felt like that, and it literally felt like I was getting pushed out the door, like, here you go, like, just leave. And it's like I can just exhale a little bit better here for me right now. And I just feel much more in mental equilibrium to watch everything that's happening from afar. And that doesn't help my friends who are there right now
Of
and
course.
dealing with all the shifting and changing. Um, but this has been a great move, and it's helped me to feel a lot more grounded so that I can continue to show up in the ways that I can for the people in my life. So
Oh
just
yeah,
want to share.
you're totally right. Every time I've landed in New Zealand, first of all, the air is just very,
Oh,
it's like, I don't know how to describe it. And I'm sure you really notice it from LA. But like,
yeah.
I was just like, when I land, it's like you can breathe. And it's like there's no stress. Nobody wants you to stress. Nobody's gonna be crazy coming after you for everything. And I just like, I remember like pretty much every time I land, I run to the beach and I just can breathe. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm here. It
There
feels
and
so good.
the clouds here, don't they seem just a little more pillowy and
Yes. Like the
it's
air, like I can't describe it. They have clean air. I mean, we know this, but like, wow. It's
yeah.
yeah. So the other question that I just had really quick was so how was like your salary differential? Like I just know like a nurse anesthetist here compared to there, and that's always the question. And it's always
Yeah.
kind of like the stopping point for people,
Yeah.
to sometimes take the leap. So
Yeah, I took a big pay cut, I'm not
okay.
gonna lie.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, that has been, I think, the hardest thing to swallow, especially with the exchange rate and everything right now.
Right.
Um, but I will say that um, by New Zealand standards, from what I'm hearing, I'm
Mhm.
doing pretty good. I don't know.
Okay, cool.
So I'm doing okay. And um, even if you are to, I feel like it's always important to position yourself in the most favorable way possible. And what I'm learning from people that I work with is that, yeah, you can do like your full time job at a hospital, or, and this happens a lot in the US, you could sign up with an agency and kind of do like contract or per diem work. And you essentially, you don't get all the quote benefits, but you get a different rate and you have more freedom. So
Right.
that's a life hack that I can offer.
Mm.
And it's possible I could maybe do some more training and slip into a different role, like be a surgical nurse first assist. That does pretty well here. The salaries are definitely not as high and everything as in the US for a lot of these things, but what I can share with you as well is I was really getting to the point of burnout after 16
Mm.
years
Mm.
living in the US and doing anesthesia. And I'm kind of pivoting anyway. And
Mhm.
this job offered me the visa in order to have a job and have all the things I needed.
Okay.
So for me, the situation is working for right now. It's for people who are in my situation, who are nurse anesthetists or advanced practice providers. one option you could do is to move here, see how you like it, and then if you wanted to, establish residency here, and you could travel back to the US for 3 months and do a travel assignment and make a crap ton of money and probably take the rest of the year off here in New Zealand.
My gosh, that would totally work, especially with the exchange rate right now in the US to New Zealand. I know because all my money is stuck in New Zealand. So I'm sitting here like, oh my gosh, I can't get myself to move it. It's like I lose half of it almost.
I know psychologically it's a lot,
Yes,
but
yes. So
so
it's all right. We're okay. But it's just like, so I maybe not, I'm renting right now because I'm like, I don't know when we want to move the money and
yeah.
yeah, I don't know what we'll do. But yeah, so yeah, that's very interesting. Do a travel nurse, do it for 3 months, probably make the same salary as
Yep.
working all year.
Honestly, with the exchange rate, and plus you get such like a premium rate when you're traveling
Right.
that it's opened my mind to be like, okay, how can I hack life?
Yeah.
Like I could spend 3 months like in, Detroit and just grind it out and then have 9 months to just like hang out and go to the beach and have
Oh
coffee on
my
Vermont
gosh,
Road.
I love that idea. Are you kidding me? Oh,
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously there's some tax implications and
yeah.
you would have to talk, working in has a great reference. His name is David, as to how you would finagle that with taxes as a New Zealand resident. You'd want to, I would
Yeah,
just
it's
advise
not that
people to
hard.
talk.
Yeah, it's not that hard. Yeah, yeah, yeah. David's good. I
Yeah.
work with a different company as well, and I'm complicated because I've been having businesses in 2 countries, and at the end of the day, you're gonna want to pay the IRS.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
IRB is just like, okay. But of course, you always want to do pay the right amount, and I always do. That's why I have an accountant. But when I first moved here, my US based accountant didn't know that much. So, oh, sorry. Sorry, it looks like you're freezing a bit. But yeah. So now that I have somebody that specializes in both, it's good. So yeah,
Yeah.
nothing's impossible. No matter where you live and work in the world, you're gonna have to pay taxes to the US. So for the rest of your life.
Agreed. And so the only thing I'll share is yes, get the information as soon as you land or before. So you know like what's coming up. Like for instance, just really quick, New
Yeah.
Zealand gives you years, right? For if you're going to be a resident and move here, like 4 years that you want to, if you're going to stay, move your money over. So for instance, if you have Roth IRAs, you might want to pay the 10% penalty and pull it over to New Zealand. Otherwise, when you withdraw, if you live in New Zealand, you're going to pay their 20 or 30, 35% tax rate on that money because it's seen as income when you
Ah,
retire.
okay.
So
That's
just
good advice.
you have 4 years to kind of make up your long-term plan is what I'm saying. So information is power, I guess is the takeaway.
Yes, totally. And yeah, so talking with a financial person. What's great about working with Working In, if you guys don't know, is that if you do your visa process with them, their relocation services are also included. In terms of like, getting that set up, and not really, most other immigration companies don't have that. But also if you're in my community, I also have I have actually different people. So like you kind of have both. So it's nice to have options for financial help or tax help or real estate agents, that sort of thing. So yeah,
Absolutely. Use all the help. So
all the help. It's so good. It's so good. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Sarah. It has been a pleasure to talk to you. I'm so glad that you made the leap, you did the thing, and you made it happen, and it's going well so far. So definitely keep me posted on like how it's going for you. And guys, if you have questions about Sarah's situation, go ahead and post it below, and we'll try to respond to you.
yeah.
But yeah, so thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. And everyone, you can move to New Zealand and thrive. So lots of love.
Yay, I love it. Yes, and for some life coaching, I'll put the links below. So,
Thank
okay,
you.
cool. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.